Hello, welcome to another week of chatting about the artist's way. So, here to check in with you. How are things going on your journey? Tell me, or at least think for a moment about these morning pages. Are they happening every morning? What mornings didn't you do them? What threw you off track? Do you have a regular routine? Like what's happening with these pages? Because these are really the crux of the artist's way. And so for a lot of folks, we're into week 5 now, right? And so I'm hearing that the reading is hard, or just hard to keep up with, or maybe not being kept up with, right? But the morning pages are sticking, or becoming a regular thing, even if it's not every day. So let's think about those for a minute. So someone was just like last week. I was telling y'all that like I felt like I had like gone deeper to a new level of pages. Someone else in study group said like they're feeling a little mundane and they're getting bored with the pages because it just feels like a to-do list. And so one thing that we suggested was, what if you were to get a list of journal prompts to keep with you when you're doing your pages, so that if you are feeling stuck, you have some prompts, right? Some things that you know that you wanted to reflect on. Use that time then. Another thing that is suggested in this week's reading is to have a 2-step process where at night you think about the questions that you want answers for, right? Like ask for them in the evening, ask the questions, and then listen for them in the morning and see what comes out on the pages. So something to think about. Someone else we were talking about how you're not supposed to be rereading your pages back. Ideally ever, but at least not for, apparently the technical thing is 8 weeks. Someone is shredding their pages, which they said is super cathartic. So there's that for you as well, right? Because it's really just about releasing and having this brain drain of clearing the mind. So there is that. And also artist date, what's happening there? I can definitely tell you, for me myself, I am not doing well at having like a scheduled designated artist date time. What usually happens it's at the end of the week. I'm like, oh, well, I guess when I did this, that was my artist date. So that's how it's going for me. There's definitely, whatever way you're doing this is not wrong, right? You're doing it right. You're getting something out of it. You're going through some kind of practice. And this book will always be here for you. You can come back and you can do it again. You can do it differently. But if you're watching this, then you're on the journey. You're somewhat invested, and that's what matters. So take what you can, leave the rest. It's totally fine. And speaking of taking what works for you and leaving the rest, this week 5, recovering a sense of possibility, was not anyone's favorite week, it seems like, in study groups. So the God metaphors, the killing metaphors, some of that was just a little heavy in here this week. Maybe felt to me and to some others just a little overkill, if you will. But again, taking what resonates with you, leaving the rest, and that's okay. I don't know what's happening here. But some things that I wanted to point out that I thought were worth noting, top notch. Talking about, we are in the spiritual position of having an unlimited bank account, and we unconsciously set a limit of how much source, God, spirit, whomever can give us. And so how can we not do that anymore? Now, I want to be very, very sure that we don't do any bypassing here, because I do know that we are living in a material world, and not everyone has access to the same resources. Not everyone has the same opportunities. I am not going to try to love and light and just trust the universe to provide everything you need for you, right? But what I am asking you to do is to open yourself up to the possibility that there is abundance, that there is unlimited source for you to draw from, right? And maybe it's still not clear of how you tap into that, or how you access that, but just framing our brains, right? Like opening our brains up, cracking them open to that is possible, I think is the key here, right? And so this chapter actually reminded me of a book by Tasha Silver called Outrageous Openness, Letting Divine Take the Lead. And I think that's a really great book. So if in what they're talking about here, that there's all these examples of when people basically just kind of like give up and say, okay, I don't need to control how this is going to come to me, how this is going to happen, like, kind of relinquishing some of that control. That's what reminded me of the Tasha Silver book. So if that's something you want to explore more, that's a great, short, quick read. Lots of just little stories, little portraits of how she has seen that surrender work in other people's lives. One thing that I loved was creating this conscious partnership in which we work along slowly and gradually, clearing away the wreckage of our negative patterning, clarifying the vision of what it is we want, learning to accept small pieces of that vision from whatever source, and then one day, presto. So a lot of the times, like as we're moving through this, we're not seeing the progress, right? It's really hard to see as you're just kind of like slowly moving forward. But I invite you to take a look back at the past 5-6 weeks and see, okay, well, what has changed? And we're getting close to like a midweek section here. So it's a lot of times easier to see your progress when you take a moment to retrospect. So expect your every need to be met. Expect the answer to every problem. Expect abundance on every level. Expect to grow spiritually. We love that. Let the flow manifest itself where it will, not where we will it. Quality lines there. What else? Finding the river, that's kind of that flow thing, right? Like we can't control the river, but it's about going with the flow of the river and easing into it, right? Accepting it. Like don't try to swim against the current. The virtue trap. This was super interesting to me. As far as this whole question of, are you self-destructive? And I think probably a lot of people don't feel like they are self-destructive, but you can be. I know even when I was reading it, I was like, I'm not self-destructive. But when I took the virtue trap quiz and looked back on it, I was like, ooh, maybe I am a little bit. Maybe I oblige others more than I oblige myself. So that was really interesting. Instead of conjuring up a list of proving how responsible you are for not letting other people down, right? For being there for others, ask yourself how responsible you're being to yourself. I thought that was something that really struck home with me. So there's that. And yeah, I think one of the coolest things out of the tasks this week was building a file of dreams, right? That sounds like a Pinterest board. We can get back on the media now, right? Which, yeah, in retrospect, like, how was that media deprivation week for you? Did you follow it? Did you not? Like, what did you learn from it? Are you carrying any more of that with you? I know for me, definitely, and talking to some others, like, now I get back on social media and I'm just like, this is dumb. I'm kind of like, what am I even doing here? And I've also noticed that I'm getting more irritable, like with my kid, right? Because I'll just be like, oh, I gotta check something really quick. And then she'll come up and she'll be like, Mom, what about this? And I'll be like, I'm doing something, but I'm not doing anything more important. So that's been a really interesting kind of just a great thing to notice for me, and I'm definitely being more mindful now with my media consumption. So that's really it for this week. I loved the wish list of just writing out as quickly as you can. I wish, blah, blah, blah. Do that 20 times. See what comes out. Don't think, just write. And that's really it, y'all. We're going to keep this under 10 minutes for you. Let me know how the journey's going. Are you still with us? I hope so, but if not, then you can always come back whenever you're ready. Please give yourself grace, give yourself compassion. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we are always on this journey. Life is about constantly creating, right? We're not making something and then we set it up and it's done. This is an ongoing process. So be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and I hope to see you again soon. Next week, we'll be back for another check-in.